Hello friends, Rob here. Thanks for stopping by. I was browsing around on the internet and I took some notes here about guitar stuff. In 2021, there was $2.6 billion worth of sales in guitars. I guess 2020 was a peak year for Fender Corporation. They sold more guitars in the year 2020 than they ever have in history. And since then, there's been somewhat of a decline, but there's also there's less people working in manufacturing in the guitar business, but sales continue to be kind of strong, and let's see, I found out here that the projected growth by 2026 is to be $3.6 billion in guitar sales. So there's a lot of roller coaster stories about guitar manufacturing companies and the strength of certain manufacturing plants in different countries versus the United States. And there's bankruptcies, and there's there's online sales. Everything is affecting this. But the funny thing about all that stuff is I'm 67, and I'm sitting here talking about it with a wall full of guitars, and so I wanted to talk about that a little bit. When I was young, it was a whole different ball game than what's going on today. We didn't have a computer in our pocket, and well, as a matter of fact, we didn't even have computers. So back when I was a kid, if you had a guitar and a guitar case and an amplifier and all the stuff that went with that, and opening up a guitar case back then, looking at that guitar was like looking at some kind of a futuristic secret weapon. Well, and they didn't cost that much back then compared to what they cost now, but I guess it's all relative, that's what they tell me. Even if you had the wherewithal to buy a guitar back in, say, mid-60s, in that time period, if you had the wherewithal to buy a guitar, you're kind of on your own after that as far as what to do next. It's just two different worlds. A funny thing has happened since then and now. Amazingly, we're still listening to the music that came out back then. There's a lot of interest in vintage guitars from that era. There's a lot of interest in vintage cars from that era. It's not a whole lot of interest in vintage players from that era. It's got to be a toss-up for a young person these days, with all the options. For instance, there a lot of people are gamers now, and that's got to compete with playing the guitar, I would imagine. We didn't have those options back then. In fact, the only people that really played guitar back then were, it seemed to me like there was just a select few or a handful of players that were ever really developed. There's just an incredible amount of guitars purchased in 2022. But one of the things that kind of stood out to me was the fact that 70% of people who were applying for online guitar learning were over the age of 45. I found out actually more information about the demographics data, and there doesn't really seem to there's not much data that exists for players like myself. I found a site called Inside Out Guitar by Andy Fraser, who had some things to say about all this. So Mark writes, "Thanks so much for your work. I'm currently involved in a venture directed at guitar players. Do you happen to have any demographics dealing with players? I guess personally my curiosity was what age group of players actually play the guitar and actually buy guitars. So Andy replied back, unfortunately, I don't have anything about demographics as far as I'm aware of that sort of data. Either doesn't exist or isn't available. I bought an Epiphone Les Paul because, well, I'm not crazy. I mean, a Gibson Les Paul it's out of my price range, you know. But I got an Epiphone Les Paul, and I bought it because Jimmy Page had a Gibson Les Paul, and mine looks just like that one that he had. And I think his was a 59, but mine has a slimmer neck and is made in China. But I remember I was in the 7th grade when I heard Jimmy Page play on Led Zeppelin 2 album in a music class. A gal had brought the album into a class for us to listen to. It was an assignment to listen to some alternative music. And I couldn't even believe it when we had it on one of those phonographs that the lid opened up and that was the speaker. And we were listening to this Led Zeppelin 2 album on that little high fidelity turntable dealie. And it was just amazing. I'd never heard anything like that before. Of course, I went out and I got my first guitar. I think I was 12 years old. I remember it was a high-low guitar. It had a P90 in it. It was $25 at the local department store. I published a couple of videos where I'm playing along to a Riverdale song, and it got a copyright claim on it. It also said in the copyright claim that it was allowed to be used on YouTube for the purposes that I used it for. But nevertheless, it did receive a copyrights claim on the video. Well, you know, my videos aren't relevant, so I guess it kind of doesn't matter in a way. But anyhow, I looked up the Riverdales, and they broke up in 2011, which was, you know, that was a long time ago now. And so I'm still getting a copyright claim on that. And there's another video that I saved in my, if you look through my playlists, there's a video in there about the music industry. It's about the death clause and how record labels own the artists well beyond their relevant years and even way past the time that they're departed from this world. Real interesting video. I put it in my playlist under important information if you want to check that out. But it's going to challenge your attention span because it's long. It's over an hour long. Something to consider if you're a youngster. I can pick around, I can improvise on a blues song or over a blues track, or I can play along in classic rock and roll and stuff. It's not my favorite stuff, but I do it, and that's what I did mostly after I started really getting into playing again, was a lot of blues. And then I started getting interested in the sound of the Ramones and the Sex Pistols and the Riverdales and some of the music that C.J. Ramone did before he was with the Ramones. He was in a band called Bad Chopper. They played some kind of cool stuff, I thought, anyhow. And I like playing that stuff, even though I don't actually play it. I play it incorrectly, you know. I don't use all downstrokes, and I know, blasphemy, right? I go up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. Actually, kind of to my ear, it sounds better, but does it matter what I think? It really doesn't. So I do whatever I feel like doing. And I recorded a video playing over a Riverdale song where a lot of it's downstrokes, but I did another one that they did, and I can't do downstrokes that fast unless I'm standing up, and I'm retired, so I don't feel like it. People actually that are in their 50s, latter 50s, actually over 60 years old. I was 9 years old when C.J. Ramone was born. The Ramones started playing when I was graduating from high school in 1974. The Sex Pistols, they came out in 1975, and a lot of that stuff was, it wasn't in the forefront of music, although they made a ripple in the pond. There was a lot of other relevant stuff that was promoted into the mainstream, and it wasn't that stuff. But that's been with me ever since that point in time. And now that I got a wall full of guitars, I find myself playing that stuff. And it's as far as demographics go, I think there's a lot of us out there that nobody really knows about. If there was millions upon millions upon millions upon millions of guitars sold, and the average cost of a guitar, let's see, it says the average cost of a guitar in 2020 was $625. I don't know. That seems like a lot of money for somebody in their teens to be throwing at a guitar. That's the average price of a guitar. I know when I was a kid, I didn't have money to throw around like that. And, of course, back then, the cost of an average guitar might have been about $275, So these days, I would imagine that there's a bunch of old guys like myself, or gals, and that are buying guitars that can afford them, that have the time to play them. And I wonder what we're all playing. There's some sarcastic terminology out there referencing people like us. They'll call us blues attorneys. I'm not an attorney. I'm a retired bus driver, so I don't fit into that category. They have those names for us, right? But on the other hand, those so-called blues attorneys are fueling this whole industry of manufacturing guitars. So, but what are we all doing? I mean, I'm 67 years old. I have a whole bunch of guitars. I'd be hard-pressed to find another guy my age that likes to play Ramones songs anywhere in the world. But I know they're out there. You guys are out there. I know you are. I know one guy in Amsterdam, well, a couple guys in Amsterdam around my age that do that stuff, and they play over songs. They play over the Misfits and the Ramones and stuff like that. But yeah, we're out there. We're out there somewhere. This Andy put a letter out in a reply to the demographic question. Just flat out admitted that there's really no data on who's playing. There's a lot of statistics about people who pick it up, and then after about a year, the guitar just winds up in a case under the bed or in a closet. And there's a lot of them that continue on playing and wind up with about $10,000 worth of equipment. So I guess that's how it winds up being. But for the most part, my world, as far as playing guitar goes, is happening right here. And if you see it, that's because I published it on this channel. So I had an opportunity recently to join up with a group of guys that was playing blues songs, and they were going to some local clubs, and I passed it up. And one of the reasons that I decided not to do it was, like, once you're retired, it's hard to like commit to three nights a week, and then also getting together to play and practice and stuff like that, and to be tied to a group of guys going out and playing, and it just, all of a sudden I realized that I have aches and pains, and I have some issues that probably wouldn't lend itself good to me being committed to a group. So I turned it down. I have fun playing, and I also have fun publishing these videos on my YouTube channel. So there's a bunch of players out there that are they're just out there, and maybe that's okay. They're not putting that stuff out like they used to back in the 60s. The internet changed all that. It's hard to put your finger on what's relevant today. It seems to me like there's a lot of country music that's kind of relevant. I don't know, you tell me. Leave your comments in the comment section. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the future.